Good evening. Welcome to TVB News. Venezuela's acting president, Delcy Rodriguez, declares a state of emergency after powerful back-to-back earthquakes killed at least 164 people and injured close to 1,000. The U.S. Geological Survey, using predictive modeling, says the death toll could reach as high as 10,000. Collapsing buildings and fears of aftershocks send panicked residents into the streets as communities continue their search and rescue efforts. The 7.2 and 7.5 magnitude earthquakes triggered evacuations across the region to as far as Brazil's Amazon, about 1,700 kilometers from Venezuela's capital, Caracas. Gloria Fang has more.
Buildings in ruins. Rescue workers pulling a person from the debris, while others celebrate the small victory of saving yet another from the destruction. People remaining outside after authorities urged them to stay vigilant in light of possible aftershocks. Venezuela's acting president Delcy Rodriguez declares a state of emergency following the 7.2 and 7.5 magnitude earthquakes Wednesday evening. The seismic activity was among the strongest to strike Venezuela in more than a century. The U.S. Geological Survey says the earthquake's epicenter was west of the community of Moron, located along the country's Caribbean coast, about 168 kilometers west of Caracas. The quake had a depth of 13 kilometers. In her address to the nation, Rodriguez says the earthquakes caused damage in several states. She confirms 20 aftershocks have been recorded since the quakes, and the country's main international airport, the Simón Bolívar International Airport, and the subway are closed. Classes are cancelled in the coming days, with the Ministry of Education using some schools as shelters and donation centers. Rodriguez says a number of countries and organizations, including the U.S., Panama, Qatar, as well as the UN, are offering their support to the country as search and rescue efforts continue. Gloria Fang, TVB News.
A fire safety engineer appointed by the independent committee investigating the deadly Wanfu-Court fire says the tragedy was caused by a series of errors. The statement is made on the final day of the fifth round of the committee's evidential hearing. Mimosa Ngai reports.
The hearing resumes at Central City Gallery. Two independent committee-appointed fire engineering experts focus on the Taibo Blaze study report on the last day of the evidential hearing. Asif Sohail Usmani, a chair professor from the Hong Kong Polytechnic University, says the rapid fire spread is caused by a series of errors, including a large pile of combustible materials and the design of the building construction. Usmani points out that the fire spread at more than 10 meters every second, which was almost like a volcano eruption along the corridors of the light wells. Jiang Limin, another fire engineering expert at the Polytechnic University, says the fire was of high intensity and emitted extreme heat, which shattered the windows, leading to a large amount of heavy smoke inside the units. Jiang says Wanfu-Court's light well design is semi-enclosed, which is not ideal for heat releasing. He explains that the smoke was able to travel inside the buildings and enter corridors as well as backstairs through temporary openings. A significant number of Wanfu-Court residents died from toxic smoke inhalation, including 24 from one townhouse. Usmani lists several suggestions, saying they could be temporary measures but should be implemented immediately. For instance, no combustible materials can be used near light wells and construction materials need to be certified. The committee will hear the closing submission from different parties on July 15. The process is expected to last 3 days. Mimosa Ngai, TVB News.
Chief Executive John Lee says the public consultation for the final policy address of the current term starts next Monday. He was speaking after meeting with representatives from the tertiary education sector on the city's 5-year plan. Gloria Fang reports.
The government held a consultation meeting to collect opinions for the tertiary education sector on formulating Hong Kong's first 5-year plan. Chief Executive John Lee, who attended the gathering, says the public consultation for the upcoming policy address will be launched next Monday, adding that the annual policy address will respond to the direction of Hong Kong's first 5-year plan. He says the plan is forward-looking and aims to align with the National Development Blueprint, while the policy address would focus on more concrete measures. Chairman of the University Grants Committee, Tim Lui, says the meeting focused on the Northern Metropolis University town, Hong Kong's role as an international tertiary education hub, and the integrated development of education, science, and technology talent, which will be the key task for the next 5 years in conjunction with the construction of the hub. Gloria Feng, TVB News.
Welcome back. Agriculture, fisheries and conservation officials have arrested a 35-year-old woman on suspicion of illegally possessing endangered species. Sources say more than 100 reptiles are found in the woman's flat. Mimosa Ngai reports.
This reptile is said to be a young 1-meter Siamese saltwater crocodile hybrid discovered in a building on Tai Po Road, Sham Shui Po. At around 1 p.m. on Wednesday, police phoned the Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals, or SPCA, about residents finding an injured crocodile. SPCA deployed several inspectors to the scene and captured the reptile with rope and net. At night, the police investigated the affected unit and found more than 100 reptiles, including ball python, redfoot tortoise, and bearded dragon, all categorized as endangered species. Architecture, fisheries, and conservation officials arrested the 35-year-old homeowner on suspicion of illegally possessing endangered species and seized the reptiles. Authorities are investigating if anyone has been breeding the reptiles as pets or operating a breeding facility. Under the Protection of Endangered Species of Animals and Plants Ordinance, convicted individuals can face a maximum fine of $10 million and a jail sentence of 10 years. Mimosa Ngai, TVB News.
Phase 2 of the light public housing project at Kai Tak's Olympic Avenue begins occupancy today. Secretary for Housing Winnie Ho says this project provides former residents of subdivided flats with upward mobility opportunities. In the occupancy ceremony, Ho hands over the keys and gifts to the residents. The project is the largest of the 13 light public housing projects. The first and second phases provide 10,300 units in total. Ho says the average rent for a subdivided unit is $5,500 per month, but the average rent for the light public housing project is just $1,300, so each family can save an average of $4,200 per month. Much of Western Europe is baking under a heat dome as temperatures soar toward 40 degrees Celsius in a number of cities. France, Italy, Spain and the UK are issuing warnings about the risk of extreme heat affecting tens of millions of people. The UK recorded its hottest June day with 35.8 degrees reported in Surrey, southern England. UK's Met Office issues the red warning, which it says is reserved for the most severe events. The agency is expecting significant health impact from this heat wave. Meanwhile, Londoners are taking plunges to cool down, with many spotted swimming and kayaking in parts of the River Thames, seeking reprieve from the blazing temperatures.
People are doing as much as they can do to stay cool, drinking water, seeking out parks and shady areas, and avoiding the hottest part of the day. Hundreds of schools across England and Wales are closed due to the heat. Many train operators urged passengers not to travel unless it's absolutely essential.
US President Donald Trump calls off a planned signing ceremony for a bipartisan housing bill that GOP lawmakers were touting as an election year achievement. Daniel Rao tells us more.
President Trump, great night for
US President Donald Trump abruptly calls off the signing of a bipartisan housing bill. Trump says he would not sign the measure until Congress passes legislation that would require proof of citizenship for all voters.
Not really, no. The SAVE Act should be, this doesn't compromise. It's voter ID, it's proof of citizenship, and it's also the mail-in ballots. We want mail-in ballots for the military if they're away. We want them for people that are ill or people that are in some form handicapped or have a hard time, or people even that are on vacation. I'm open to that. But mail-in ballots, you have to vote because we have a lot of rigged elections.
The 21st Century Road to Housing Act is the culmination of months of negotiations by lawmakers, who combined dozens of bills meant to address how housing affordability for both renters and aspiring homeowners in the US has grown increasingly out of reach for many Americans. The bill would reduce federal regulations, streamline environmental reviews, speed up the construction process, and curb the influence of corporate landlords by limiting their ability to purchase single-family homes. The bill has drawn broad support from the real estate industry, including organizations representing home builders and apartment complex owners, as well as housing advocates. Trump's refusal to sign it prompted criticism from leading Democrats.
Donald Trump had a unique, rare chance to help the American people, and he refused. Donald Trump, whenever he has an opportunity to help the American people with costs of housing and other issues, he runs away from them. He gets diverted to ridiculous issues.
We should be here today to celebrate because we should have a housing bill that is now law. Instead, we are here with a call to action. And the call is sign the bill, Mr. President. Americans want housing costs to go down.
Trump's decision to not sign the legislation into law could end up just temporarily delaying the measure from taking effect. The House passed the bill in a 358-32 vote on Tuesday, and the Senate passed it 85-5 on Monday. That level of support is what's colloquially called a veto-proof majority. Still, if Trump were to veto the measure, the Senate and the House would have to vote again to override the veto. Dan Rowell, TVB News.
Less than 7 months after Zohran Mamdani became the youngest New York mayor in a century, he is celebrating the election feats of his slate of congressional candidates that swept establishment-backed Democrats in Tuesday's primaries. While demanding major changes across the party, Mamdani says it was a question of electing better Democrats who will put working people back at the heart of politics. Mamdani arrives for a K2 event in the Bronx with New York Liberty's Ellie the Elephant, saying he hopes to export his policies and politics to other states. The 34-year-old leader of America's largest city has endorsed a trio of progressive candidates in House races, ousting 2 sitting Democratic incumbents in the process. On Tuesday night, Congressman Dan Goldman fell in defeat to Mamdani-backed former city controller Brad Glander. Mamdani's preferred pick, Darylisa Avila Chevalier, who helped organize pro-Palestinian rallies at Columbia University, beat out 5-term Congressman Adriano Espiat. And Democratic Socialist State Assembly member Claire Valdez, a third Mamdani-endorsed candidate, won the primary for an open house seat representing the 7th District. Incumbent Representative Nidia Velazquez is not seeking re-election.
And what I see these results as a reflection of are the fact that New Yorkers are hungry for a new kind of politics. They are hungry for a politics that understands working people should be at the heart of it. And they're hungry for a politics that looks at the wealthiest city in the wealthiest country in the history of the world and understands that it's unacceptable that 1 in 4 are living in poverty.
With Mamdani's clout surging, the mayor's socialist movements highlighting government-funded health insurance, steeper taxes on the rich, and affordable housing could spill out into national politics and pose a challenge to Democratic leaders on the Capitol Hill. In Washington, U.S. President Donald Trump claims the Democratic Party is going radical left, and the newly minted candidates will alienate voters.
Does this tell you that the Democratic Party's 2028 nominee will likely be, or could likely be, a Democratic socialist?
Well, it should make it easier for Republicans because most of the nation is composed of sane people. They don't want to, if you look throughout history, go back thousands of years, you've always had socialism and communism by different names. It's never ever worked. It's not going to work this time.
NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte is in Washington this week for talks with US President Donald Trump, 2 weeks before the annual summit of the military alliance in Ankara. Rutte's trip comes at a particularly tense moment as Trump has singled out NATO allies such as Britain, Germany and Italy for their refusal to aid the US-Israeli offensive in Iran. Now, with Tehran and Washington inching closer to draw an end to the 4-month-old war, NATO officials hope the emerging peace deal between the parties will prevent the alliance's July summit from devolving into a public showdown. opening a face-to-face conversation with Trump in the Oval Office. Rutte lauds Trump launching the military campaign and calls him the leader of the free world.
First of all, about Iran. I really want to make clear how important it is what you are doing on Iran. This is, first of all, about the nuclear capability Iran was basically getting its hands on. And that would have been a threat to the region, it would have been a threat to the whole world. This is the leader of the free world taking responsibility beyond the shores of the United States for the rest of the world.
He further notes that European allies were, generally speaking, standing with Washington in the conflict before a ceasefire was reached, and argues that it would be very difficult to deal with Iran without having Europe as a power protection platform for the United States.
Look at the numbers. 4,000 to 5,000 US planes taking off from bases in Europe. In the 6 weeks this war took place.
Trump says he just wants loyalty from NATO allies and that he doesn't believe it was the US troops that hit a school in Iran's Minab at the beginning of the war. He adds there were a lot of missiles being fired at the time. Iranian authorities say 175 people lost their lives from a US-Israeli missile attack on an elementary school for girls on February the 28th. Missile debris found at the scene reportedly bore markings consistent with American munitions. Meanwhile, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio assures reporters in Kuwait that the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz will be toll-free as he arrives for Gulf meetings.
I think the whole world will be against any mechanism that charges money to use an international waterway. It's that simple. The president's already said it. That's not going to happen. I am certain that not only will every country in the Gulf region be supportive, probably with the exception of Iran, but all the GCC members will be supportive, but the whole world will be supportive.
Foreign Minister Wang Yi, who held a phone call with his Pakistani counterpart Ishaq Dar on Wednesday, has reiterated that normal navigation through the strait should be restored as soon as possible. This is to ensure the stability of global industrial and supply chains, Wang said. He also insisted that relevant arrangements must respect the sovereignty and legitimate rights and interests of states bordering the strait, while conforming to international practices and the common aspirations of all nations. M+ Museum presents a family-friendly special exhibition exploring the beauty in everyday objects and how their design impact our lives. Kelly Law has more.
The Hong Kong edition of Design Art Experience, The Wonder of Everyday Design exhibition, opens this Saturday at West Kowloon Cultural District's M+ Museum. This edition is curated specifically for Hong Kong, incorporating many distinct elements of local culture.
So the team from Tokyo came, spent in Hong Kong for 3 days. We started going to the Chow Chan Teng, eating Hong Kong food. We went to the stationery shop, looking at the common things.
At its core, the exhibition invites visitors to discover the small details woven into everyday life. The exhibition explores the extraordinary design concepts hidden behind the ordinary everyday objects.
Also help you to think about negotiation, compromise, conversation, and those are also skills you need to take into your everyday life, and they also apply to how design impacts our lives. So we're all users of the objects around us, and how we interact with them plays part of how we're existing and being together in society.
The gallery space is filled with interactive works and immersive audiovisual rooms, encouraging visitors to explore firsthand how design enhances our quality of life, shapes our daily behaviors, such as the way we walk and the way we hold objects, and fosters deeper connections between people. Visitors can access all M+ galleries with a single price admission ticket. There are also kid and adult combo tickets available for $250. Kelly Law, TVB News.
And that's the news. Thank you for watching.